All right. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to Tech Tuesday. My name is Tom Levine. Today we'll be covering add-ins for Outlook, some of the best, what to avoid, as well as how to spot a bogus ad in from a real one. And before I jump into that, I do have some brief housekeeping to cover, as well as mentioning that this is a re-recorded version. Unfortunately, we did have a few different problems with the initial webinar, mainly being that we didn't have good connectivity in our webinar room, and I'm looking into resolving that now as well. But without further ado, let's get into some of the housekeeping. Obviously, question box will not pertain to this, but if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My phone number is displayed on the screen. It's 513-487-5390, and my email address is tlevine@crnstone.com. If you have any questions about that, just put Tech Tuesday in the subject line, ask your question, and I'll respond pretty quickly. Also, don't forget, if you haven't yet, to sign up for our Monday Minute newsletter. It gives you the latest on Cornerstone carrier and industry updates, and it might be something you're interested in. Also, don't forget to, if you haven't, sign up for Cornerstone's new AGB portal. It's our new one-stop shop for managing your book of business through Cornerstone, from carrier and client information to commission schedules. If you have any questions about the new platform or your access, please reach out to your broker advisor or the AGB support team at agbsupport@crnstone.com. Also, with Cornerstone's ASP program, you're the pilot of your business. We are your flight crew. As a Cornerstone broker, you have access to expert services from our agency services program that can help you with business outside of your scope and planning for the future. We will create a customized plan for you based on your specific needs and ensure that you, your business, and your family are covered. Contact your Cornerstone representative for more information. So that being said, let's get into Outlook add-ins and how they can improve your workflow. Now, if you've ever used Microsoft Teams or other integrated chats, you may actually already be familiar with some of these. Microsoft likes to call them add-ins, but that's not the only name for this type of software. They are also called add-ons, modules, integrated apps, widgets, extensions, you name it. It really just depends on the developer you're working with. Basically, an add-in is a piece of software that modifies a core program. So for instance, you might be able to change or add functionality to Outlook, so that way you don't have to leave Outlook to schedule meetings in another app, something like that. Another way to think of these are kind of as spreadsheets. So if you're operating in Word, you might have gotten the will to put in a little spreadsheet, maybe one or two headers and a piece of data or two, but you didn't want to open Excel and make a whole workbook for it, for something that small. In that case, you just hit the little insert function, create a little table there, just drag and drop, and then name it, put your info, and you're on your way without opening, Excel for, making a full spreadsheet and then copying and pasting it in. It's the same kind of thing. It's just integrating other apps as well. So that's kind of a basic overview of what an add-in is. That being said, it can get a little more complicated than that. Outlook describes add-ins, or Microsoft rather, as a partnership with leading companies that allow you to build programs to get things done right from your inbox. This is pertaining directly to Outlook. These programs are called Office add-ins and help you speed up the way you access information on the web. For example, the Bing Maps add-in becomes available, highlights addresses in emails, and then you can use that to check an online map immediately for that location right from your email. So without having to open up an additional window or change something further or open up any other programs, you can just search the web, make sure that you're looking at the right address. Pretty quick, pretty simple, pretty good little add-in. Great example. But one thing to be aware of is when Microsoft says it's partnered with leading companies to build this. Partnered is a strong word. Basically what they mean from that is they have approved companies that have submitted applications to license add-ins for their product. So, a third-party function like GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar has a plugin for Outlook or an add-in that allows you to schedule meetings through Outlook instead of having to open the app and schedule it that way. Plain and simple. But it doesn't just partner with companies like GoTo. It also partners with a lot of other agencies and a lot of other entities that they don't always fully vet. And this is why you have to be careful about making add-ins available. A lot of office administrators for IT will actually disable them by default because of this. And that's how we do it here at Cornerstone, and why I'm not just showing you these add-ins directly today. Also, you might want to look into what you're installing to make sure that that feature isn't already available. It's another step to kind of troubleshoot, make sure you're not installing kind of bad add-ins, but we're going to get more into the detail of that kind of closer to the end of the presentation. For now, let's focus on what makes an add-in good. An add-in should fix something that would require a lot of effort to get working in the base program, should modify something inherently non-functional in the current version, or it should integrate a function of the core program that it doesn't account for. A good integration would be like what's mentioned in the above with email and location integration, or maybe you're just integrating a meeting scheduler, something like that. That being said, when you're looking for what add-ins to throw into your software, you need to consider some other functionality first. Mainly, what can this thing already do without installing some third-party plugin or third-party add-on? And the reason I say this is because a lot of people will say, oh, we have this revolutionary piece of software, or a lot of defunct companies or bad companies, I guess, would say, oh, we have this revolutionary piece of software. It fixes all this hassle. It lets you do things like rearrange how your Outlook looks or change the way things are displayed, which is something you can do natively within Outlook settings. So, anyone saying they can modify that, be wary. Unless it's a real major modification, they're probably just after your data, and they're using that to kind of filter out people who don't know how to use Outlook. If you don't know how to use Outlook and you install their app, then you're probably not going to figure out, oh, these people are stealing my information, or they're doing something else with my computer because I've given them access to this add-on. So just something to be aware of. That being said, what can Outlook do first that you shouldn't look for plugins to do? The first is rules, and rules are actually pretty useful. I use them quite a lot. Rules allow you to move and sort things automatically, flag emails for follow-up, and automate notices to be more relevant. We've covered this in some past presentations on Outlook in brief. I might look into doing a more detailed presentation on in the future if there's interest. Just let me know. But these sort of rules can kind of automate workflow and automate sorting of emails. So any sort of add-in that does that is kind of superfluous, or maybe not really necessary. Another reason you might want to look into this for, choosing a good add-in is because add-ins will slow down the way Outlook works. The more you add to a program, the more bogged down it gets, and the more processing power it takes to, run the program. So installing too many can cause issues. It normally won't if you're just installing like 4 or 5, but if you're installing like 20, then you might want to be a bit more careful. It's another reason to kind of look to what the program can already do before you install a third-party plugin. Additionally, you might want to check your settings. Like I mentioned before, there's that ribbon experience we were talking about. You're able to completely and freely manipulate the ribbon that's displayed in Outlook, and you're even able to make your own custom sections. So, add-in that just customizes your ribbon, probably not worth, actually installing. And lastly, we have the miscellaneous section. These are just issues that you're able to troubleshoot on your own with Outlook. I'd always, if you're running into a problem, just give it a quick Google search, maybe check the Microsoft forums, make sure someone else hasn't already run into that problem and found a solution that didn't involve installing a third-party plugin. That way you're able to just fix the problem yourself, move on with your day, keep everything moving smoothly. The next bit is how to actually install these, and a bit of a disclaimer for Outlook at least. You can only install plugins on Outlook 2013 or later on Windows, 2016 or later on Mac, Outlook on your phone, Outlook for the web, or for Exchange 2016 or later, and Outlook.com. Also Outlook 365, well, whatever's contained in Office 365 that runs Outlook. And the reason for this is mostly just because of compatibility issues. If you're trying to install a plugin on an older version of Outlook than 2013 on Windows at least, then it actually runs really differently. And so the plugin might not be compatible. That's just kind of generally how it is. You also want to make sure you're running a more up-to-date version just to make sure it's powerful enough to actually power the plugin. Also, to actually install it once you're there, go to Home, All Apps, or Home, Get Add-ins, depending on your version of Outlook, and search the name of a plugin. It'll pop up. Hit add, it's installed. It's that easy. It'll appear in your ribbon under the add-ins section near the top by messages, or it'll appear in a separate add-in section, depending on how you have your settings configured. It's really not one size fit all, but I will also be linking to a store for a bunch of different logins here later, or add-ins you can find later, so stay tuned for that. You might actually already be using plugins for other apps as well, and I just want to mention a few of them here just to, pique your memory, or if you've ever installed a plugin or something to something else, maybe you've already done it. It's a very similar process. It's pretty common in web browsers like Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Mozilla Firefox, document editors like Word, PDF, LibreOffice, and Drive-Cloud storage, such as Google Drive or Dropbox. Some of these are clients for plugins like the web browsers, and some of these have their own plugins that they like to integrate, like Dropbox or PDF or LibreOffice if you use that. So just, plugins to be aware of. And now, that being said, which ones are the best and why? Well, these are just kind of a short list of add-ins that I like to mention. Personally, I really like the idea of Grammarly or EverContact. We're going to cover those first. But these are just a few of the useful ones that I know and that we're going to cover. There's a wide range of different types of plugins that you can install. And these are just a few of the ones that I think are useful for business. They're best because they follow those 3 rules. They modify the core program to do something that would be really difficult to do yourself. They, make something that's, pretty available, pretty reputable, and something that you already use that might be able to work itself in. Or they are something that kind of, seeks to solve solutions to problems that Outlook already has. One of those being EverContact, which I'm pretty excited about. Let's go ahead and just get into some of these. First one being Grammarly. Grammarly is a kind of third-party spell checker. We all know that the spell checker included with Microsoft is really not always the best. So Grammarly is a second guesser, basically. It will spell check and grammar check, but it can do so much more. The spell and grammar check are the free plugin version. You can just install it natively. But if you pay for their service at $12 a month, it's actually really amazing, and it's cross-platform. You can install it in Outlook. You can have it as a centralized app on your phone. You can have it on pretty much anything, any computer, doing checks on any kind of thing. The plugin that I use actually for my online browser is actually really useful as well. It starts at $12 a month, but the $12 tier, not only do you get that spelling and punctuation check, which is better than the default one, but also it'll check for English fluency, kind of suggest ways to phrase things that are a little bit better. It'll also suggest rewriting and reformatting of your phrases as well. It'll check for inclusive language, your tone. It'll have plagiarism protection, so you're not, violating someone's, copyright. And also, it can check for more enterprise solutions if you have that available and inquire about it. You can check that at www.grammarly.com/plans for additional details. The next plugin that I'd like to mention is EverContact. And this is actually one that I'm pretty excited about, even if we don't use it here. EverContact adds new emails automatically into your contact list in Outlook. Now, depending on your tier, that changes from what contact list it adds in, but it's incredibly useful. Let's say you're contacting some representative from UHC, and they reach out to you, but only once, and you want to reach out to them again. Well, with EverContact, if it was like 3 or 4 months ago, you've already deleted their email, you didn't have their contact into your contact book, just typing it in, it won't pop up. With EverContact, it's already in your address book, and you already know their name. You can just type their name, it'll pop up, hit go. It's done. If someone changes their contact information, but it comes through as the same person, it'll also update your contact list in Outlook for you automatically. Pretty dang useful. The Essentials is $59 annually. It updates your contacts automatically based on signatures to your address book. If you work in an organization, however, you might want to go for Pro. Pro kind of expands that. It allows you to export your contact list through this EverContact with a CSV file, and it also automatically updates company and group contact lists. Finally, for enterprise, it's per contract basis. It extends that license for over 50 users, and it ensures that CRM integration is going to be direct, that being something like Teams or another sort of CRM service that you might use. It'll automatically update those contacts as well. So pretty dang useful. Another good one that I like to integrate is Acrobat Sign. If you're already paying for a premium Adobe access or Adobe, Acrobat in general, then you might want to look into this plugin. It's free if you've already got the annual subscription, so I included that pricing here. We actually covered PDF's last webinar, so if you have any questions on that, I'd recommend checking it out. But if you need multiple signatures on a document, it'll actually check it and update you to see how many other signatures you need. And the pricing is included with Adobe Pro. So if you like to add a lot of signatures to things and don't want to bother opening up the document, reading it all the way through, making sure you've dotted all your T's, crossed your I's, and you just need a signature on something, the Adobe Acrobat plugin, pretty useful. Another one that I might want to mention is actually kind of a broad category. I'm mentioning this all at once because they all kind of do the same thing. There's Zoom, GoTo, Slack, Microsoft Teams, a whole lot of different types of meeting apps. And what you can do is you can actually install a plugin that will allow you to have these, available in Outlook. You can create a meeting, say it's going to be on Zoom or GoTo with their respective plugins, and then hit, create meeting. And that'll create the meeting not only in your Outlook contact, but also in that meeting app, Zoom, GoTo, Slack, what have you, whatever integrated app that you've got. You'll just be able to, set the location as there, make sure it's set to the online meeting through their plugin, you're good to go. It's also, these meetings are editable directly in those apps as well. So let's say you have Zoom on your phone, set up a meeting on your Outlook calendar on your PC, hit go, it's integrated into your Zoom account. So when you open up Zoom on your phone, the meeting's there. One of the other ones that I like, and this is more of a personal fun one, is Giphy. Giphy is just kind of a third-party GIF keyboard and search tool. If you integrate it into your email, then you can just find a lot of GIFs automatically and throw them in there without having to open up a web browser, search for something you want to include, and throw it in. It's good for like casual tones. A lot of smartphones have similar features with like GIF keyboards that you can search and pull up, though normally those are proprietary and not related to Giphy directly, the company. But it's a free add-in and you can just add it automatically. Something I think is pretty useful to add some fun tones to just general office invites or things you might want to just make a little more fun. Another one, which we're going to come back to here in a second for troubleshooting some bogus add-ins, is Translator for Microsoft Outlook. I like to use this if I'm talking to friends in other countries or people who don't have English as a first native language. It's directly kind of tied from Microsoft's translator app info. So, use at your own discretion. It's not going to be 110% accurate, but it is useful for getting general things across. One unique feature about this is it'll convert as you type in an email. So if you've got an email going in English and you're sending it to someone from, let's say, Germany, and you want to send it in German, then you can use the translator app to translate that message into German, copy, paste, write it to your email, hit send, you're done. It'll update as you're typing, so you know that it's actually translating correctly as well. Now, this also has the added benefit of saving the person on the other end a step of copying and pasting your notice into a translator if they're having problems understanding it. It's also really useful if you have English as a second language, or if you're trying to learn a new language and keep up your immersion, because it'll have both languages displayed there for you. Pretty useful. And this is another one I'm actually pretty excited about, is Evernote. Evernote is a centralized note-taking app, and I'd highly recommend using it if you're trying to replace OneNote. OneNote is really useful, and I use it all the time, but it's actually kind of insecure nowadays. The last time the app was updated was in 2016, so it's kind of out of use. I don't think Microsoft has any plans on updating OneNote anytime soon either. But Evernote is a lot more powerful than just OneNote. Evernote is available to sync across multiple devices. So if you have a note in Evernote, then you can also sync that to a Evernote app on your phone or an Evernote app on another PC that has your login information, and you'll just be able to access the notebook wherever you are, wherever you go, as long as you have access to a device. The plugin, however, lets you add in lists and tasks and to-dos directly from Outlook into that Evernote folder. So it's really useful for kind of keeping yourself on task when you're away from your browser and away from your other main device or away from your actual inbox. Pretty dang sweet. It can also act as a personal organizer, kind of like I said, and keep notes across device. It's priced between $8 and $10 per month, depending on how often or how frequent you use it and what tier of service you're looking for. Now, the last plugin we're going to cover today is for Dropbox, and the reason I saved it for last is actually because it's something a lot of people in insurance use but don't set up correctly. Dropbox is a cloud storage solution, so it lets you access your information from anywhere as long as you have a device that's logged in as you for Dropbox. It can also send files directly integrated with emails, and it also allows you to save a click or two on, throwing in attachments or saving attachments directly to your Dropbox if you have the plugin installed. Now, the reason I save this is because it can have some issues in insurance. Mainly, you need to change some settings to make sure you're compliant with high tech and HIPAA for data storage. The first one is you have to sign a BAA, which they actually won't do with you unless you are on a paid service. The cheapest one I could find for one user was $16 a month for 3 terabytes of storage, which actually really isn't that bad for 3 terabytes of storage remotely on the cloud. Well, I guess it kind of is, but it depends on your use case. For us, because we're trying to store HIPAA compliant information, it's probably pretty good. Once you make sure you have that signed, you also have to comply with all the other parts of HIPAA and HITECH. So once you have it signed and have an admin page, you have to validate security controls as well as develop internal policies and procedures covering the use of that cloud storage and make sure only people who need to have access to it, essentially. There's more information that I'm going to put up here in the chat at the end and kind of display on the screen. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to stick around or scroll through to the end of the presentation. That being said, we're going to circle back to what I mentioned at the beginning. What makes a plugin trustworthy? So let's say you're just looking for that translator app for Outlook. Just as a good example, if you search on the web store for translator and just type that, don't specify you're looking for Outlook, don't specify you're looking for anything else, 2 big apps pop up. The first is this translator for Outlook displayed on the left, and the other is Translate It by OOORD17, which is not for Outlook, it's for Teams. We're going to ignore that for these purposes, but it's kind of suspicious already. It's pretty vague, and we're just going to use this to walk through the 5 points of troubleshooting that I use to make sure that the plugin that I'm installing is legitimate and will actually not harm my system. First is to check the publisher. This is listed right here, where I'm kind of highlighting where it says who it's by. The one on the left is a translator by Microsoft Corporation. Microsoft Corporation is the publisher of Windows. They're the ones who made Outlook. Pretty trustworthy. Let's look at the Teams one, though, Translate It. It's developed by OOORD17. And for non-Russian speakers, OOO is actually kind of their version of an LLC. So that's just referring to what their corporation is. So, RD17 also isn't very specific. So I actually did some research on it. And like I said before, they are a Russian LLC or a Russian company doing a integration for Teams. Now, I'm not going to get into any politics or any of the rest of that, but I will say that, because these developers are, not from where you are and they're just developing a third-party app for Teams that does the job that a translator app that they've likely already developed for Outlook is doing, I'd be a little suspicious. Now, let's also check right under here, which is the next thing, confirm the program that it's listed for. If you're trying to install an Outlook plugin, for example, and you get a Teams plugin, one, it won't work, but it also tells you that plugin is not going to be useful to you. So that's another thing you might want to check. The third thing that I check is the star rating, but it's also linked here with this rating number, which I'm kind of underlining. This 5-star right here, but only off of 2 ratings, means that they probably have a review from themselves and maybe a review from someone they paid to review it over here on the right-hand side, or maybe one user. It's possible people don't leave reviews, but the fact that they've only got 2 reviews and both are 5 stars, it's a little iffy to me. Meanwhile, the one on the left has a lower star rating at 3.7, but it's got that rating from 1,681 different responses and rating reviews. Now, one thing I like to do when double checking this kind of stuff, if it's got that many ratings on it, that number is probably a pretty good indicator of how good the plugin is. Translator for Outlook isn't 100% accurate, and it can lead to some confusion, so that rating makes sense to me. What I would recommend doing, though, if you're looking to install a plugin, is to read 2 5-star, 2 4-star, and 2 1-star reviews. And the reason I recommend that is the 5-star reviews will be glowing, and normally they're pretty brief. Sometimes you can get a 5-star review that it's actually useful and covers all the features of the app. Sometimes you don't. I just generally check 2 5-stars to see if I can get a useful one. The next one are the 4-star reviews, and I like these a lot more. 4-star reviews will point out all of the positives with the app, as well as maybe 1 or 2 of the issues that kept them from rating it at 5. These are actually pretty useful, and they also might cover some general user kind of issues that they encountered, or some other problems that you might actually run into yourself. So pretty good to read through. And lastly is the 1-star reviews. The reason I check these are because people who have bad experiences with them will leave them, and sometimes they can be down to simple technical issues. But if that's the case, you might have that same technical issue. They might be running a machine that's very similar to yours, and maybe the plugin doesn't work for it. So it's something to just kind of keep an eye on and double check. Maybe they took your money if the plugin isn't a free plugin and didn't really provide any service as well. So that's something I'd like to review as well if I notice reviews are 1 star. And then after reviews, the last thing I check is this overview section down here. Now, a reputable overview section will have this bottom bit that say add in capabilities. It might not be phrased exactly that way, but it'll kind of dissect exactly what it has access to. See, under add in capabilities, it says when this add-in is used, it can send data over the internet and can access personal information in the active message, such as sender names, receipt names, email addresses. Kind of goes through exactly what kind of information it can access for translation. Now that send over the internet is to provide that translation service. That's something I'd expect, but it's very transparent. It's very forward with what it does. Meanwhile, the third-party plugin, Translate It, just says what you can do. Set the bot to translate messages, translate received messages, save time. We use it daily, and it's that RD17 LLC again, the same people who created the plugin, which makes it a little less reputable as well. Just something to make you a little bit more wary, I guess I'd say. Not saying that Translate It isn't a valid plugin. I'm not, commenting really on whether or not they're actually legitimate, but I will say some of their entries here do give me pause as a consumer. So things you might want to look at before you install a plugin. Now, which of those plugins that I covered would I actually use? Well, EverContact is one that I think is incredibly useful. It's just because, Outlook doesn't automatically throw people in your contact books. I have people I contact all the time that I don't have in my contact book either. So it's just something that's useful, especially if you're changing devices. Also, Zoom or GoToMeeting. Those plugins I use all the time as well. And I actually think they're incredibly helpful if you're trying to, not have about 20 or 30 different apps open all at once, schedule meetings across a bunch of different platforms. Adobe Sign is also incredibly helpful. If you're just trying to sign a document or a contract really quick, you just hit sign from within Outlook. You don't have to open up the document, don't have to open up Adobe. Pretty simple. And the last one is Grammarly, and I don't use it personally. I probably should, just because it double checks tone. It can prevent brief messages from getting sent that really shouldn't, and it can help you make sure that you're doing things well and communicating effectively. So those are all the ones that I'd recommend from the list I covered if you're planning on installing any. Some other notes before we get into kind of the nitty-gritty of the legal things I mentioned earlier and some other links that you might find helpful. Don't forget to tune into some of our upcoming webinars. There's the Build Your Brand webinar covered on May 24th for email marketing in 2023. There's a second part of our Molina series for individual products coming up as well for May 31st. And the next webinar that I personally will be doing, and I'll probably be doing it from this desk as well, is securing your emails with Zix. This is just, how to use our, Zix format from your end and how to set up Zix for your own business if you're interested. And a brief Q&A will also follow. That being said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly at 513-487-5390 or by sending me an email again at tlevine@sierraandstone.com. And that being said, let's go ahead and talk about this document I have up here. The first thing I'm going to put actually in the chat, and I want to do that just to see if maybe it'll make it a little bit easier, a little bit more visible for you. There we go, is the link to how to add in add-ins directly from Microsoft. That'll be a lot easier to use and reference directly if you're trying to install add-ins yourself or look through how to actually access the library from your version of Outlook that you use. Another link that I'm going to put in here is a link to the App Store. And I'm actually going to click on it here as well to kind of show you what that brings up. It opened up on my other screen, but it brings up this app scrolling feature. If I go ahead and search for that other option that I had, let's do translate. Hit enter. Oh, that was the wrong section. I should probably actually use the search, shouldn't I? Hit enter. It'll load up all of the different plugins that Microsoft has available for translation. One of the top ones is that Translate It that we were just covering actually as well. And lastly, this is the instructions for how to make HIPAA Dropbox compliant, or Dropbox HIPAA compliant, my apologies. Now, I did get this from another source, another article, and that APA citation is available in that chat message that I just put there as well. It is HIPAA Dropbox compliant is the article title, and I got that from www.lawtechnologytoday.org. It's incredibly useful. I'd highly recommend checking them out if you need this complete list of how to enable Dropbox. Real quick for you though, I'm gonna zoom in on my screen right here. And these are all the steps that you'd have to actually do to make use of Dropbox HIPAA compliant. I just copied those right off the website, and I'd highly recommend you check them out as well if you have any further questions. You can go ahead and pause this video right here if you're trying to read these through and make it full screen, maybe make it a little more visible, or you can reach out to me directly, again, if you would like me to just send you this list. As always, I hope you've learned something new, and I hope you had a wonderful day watching this Tech Tuesday. Thank you.